That was the first Christmas I spent completely alone. Earlier that year, I lost my parents and my brother in a car accident. I was the only survivor. From that moment on, the house felt too big and far too quiet. I started wandering the streets with no real destination, talking to strangers online, just trying to escape the loneliness. That was when I started talking to a girl named Tracy. We had been messaging for a few weeks. Nothing deep, nothing that really mattered. One day, she suggested we meet at a cafe to talk in person and get to know each other better. I thought it was a good idea. Anything felt better than spending so much time alone. But it wasn't. Tracy didn't talk much. She answered with short sentences. She watched everything around her, but barely looked at me. We tried to start conversations a few times, but they always faded quickly. The silence between us became uncomfortable. At one point, we just sat there staring at the table, saying nothing. Eventually, we started talking about Christmas, and that's when she offered to help me decorate my Christmas tree that same night. Even though it felt strange, I agreed. I didn't want to go back home alone. When we arrived at my place, the mood didn't improve. We started setting up the tree, but the silences were still too long. At one point, I said I was thirsty and went to the kitchen to grab a Coke, just to break the tension. We kept working, but the tree still didn't look right, so I decided to go to the garage to get more decorations. While I was in the garage, I heard noises coming from upstairs. They sounded like footsteps, and even a door closing. I rushed back to the living room. Tracy was in the exact same spot, hanging ornaments on the tree as if nothing had happened. But something caught my attention. My Coke was sitting on the table. I didn't remember leaving it there. It bothered me for a moment, but I told myself it was probably just distraction. That's when Tracy suggested a toast to our friendship, and maybe something more than that. It felt far too romantic for two people who barely knew each other. Still, I agreed. Loneliness has a way of lowering your guard, and Tracy was very beautiful. We kept decorating the tree. The lights flickered softly, giving the room a false sense of warmth. Not long after, I started feeling unwell. First came a light dizziness, then a heavy feeling in my body. My vision blurred. I tried to say something, but I couldn't. Everything went dark. When I woke up, the house was completely dark. The silence was absolute. My body felt heavy, hard to move. That's when I sensed a presence. Standing in front of me was a tall silhouette. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just watched me. Even without seeing clearly, I knew it was Tracy. Seconds later, she turned, ran off, and disappeared. It took me a while to get back on my feet. I started searching the house for signs of theft. No electronics, no money, nothing missing that made sense. Until I went into the bedroom. The photo frame with my family picture was gone. It was the only photo I always kept in sight. When I opened the box where I stored old photographs, my chest tightened. It was empty. Every photo of my parents and my brother was gone. The only proof that they had ever really been there with me. After that, I tried to find Tracy. Messages undelivered, profile deleted. No trace of her anywhere. A few days later, I told everything to a coworker. He listened quietly and said it was a very strange story, because the girl hadn't stolen anything of value. No expensive items, no money, nothing that truly mattered. I told him he was wrong. Tracy had stolen the most valuable things I owned. She had stolen my memories.
I used to love Christmas, and my family used to be a happy family, at least until Christmas Eve of 2019. On the afternoon of December 24th, I was at the grocery with my two younger brothers, Lucas and Miguel. Lucas was getting older and had decided he didn't want to celebrate Christmas anymore. He kept saying it was all fake, that it was for little kids, and that Santa Claus didn't exist. My dad heard that and on impulse told Lucas that Santa did exist, and that he would visit us that very night. I thought it was cute, but I had no idea how he planned to make that happen. Then he explained his plan. He would leave right away to buy a Santa costume and come back before dinner to surprise everyone. My mom tried to stop him, saying it was Christmas Eve and there wouldn't be a single costume left anywhere. But my dad insisted. He put on his coat, rushed out the door, and left as if he knew exactly where to find one. I remember that the moment he closed the door, the living room light flickered and went out. For a second, it felt like a bad sign, but I pushed that thought away, telling myself it was just my imagination. Time passed and afternoon slowly turned into night. We were finishing the last preparations for Christmas Eve dinner. My mom tried to keep the atmosphere cheerful, but I could see the worry growing on her face. My dad didn't text. He didn't call. He didn't answer. While I was playing with Miguel on the rug, I noticed Lucas standing in the hallway, staring at the front door. Before I could ask what he was doing, I heard it too. A slow dragging sound on the porch, like heavy footsteps pulling something along. The noise stopped right outside the door. Then came 3 knocks. Slow, spaced out, almost delicate. The first thing I thought was that my dad had finally arrived. Maybe he was tired, carrying things, or just trying to make a dramatic entrance as Santa. But something about the rhythm of those knocks, the silence between them, made me feel uneasy. It was already dark when, suddenly, without anyone unlocking it, the door slowly opened, and a Santa Claus walked in. The costume was perfect. Bright red clothes, dark boots, a tilted hat. But the man didn't say a single word. For a moment, I really believed my dad had managed to pull it off, running all over the city just to bring Christmas magic back for Lucas. My mom gave a wide, loving smile, completely convinced it was him under the costume. Lucas was ecstatic, but I couldn't feel the same joy. There was something off about that Santa. The way he breathed, heavy, slow, almost silent, made it seem like he was exhausted or carrying some kind of sadness. I tried to convince myself my dad was just tired, or maybe even emotional after spending more money than he should have on that costume. Santa walked toward the Christmas tree with slow, almost ceremonial steps. He didn't speak. He simply approached the gifts we had placed there earlier and started handing them out one by one. Lucas jumped with excitement. My mom laughed, relieved, and Miguel stared at the lights, mesmerized by the atmosphere of the night. I just kept watching. That's when I noticed it. As Santa handed Lucas the last present, he lowered his head, and a single tear slid down his cheek, disappearing into the red fabric. It wasn't the kind of emotion someone shows while playing around. It wasn't joy. It was deep sadness. For a moment, my chest tightened. Was my dad upset about something? Had he had a rough day? Was he overwhelmed from trying so hard to make this night special? When the gifts were finally handed out, Santa walked slowly to the door. He didn't wave. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't even look back. He just placed his hand on the doorknob, opened it with the same calmness he had shown when entering, and stepped out into the cold night. My mom sighed with happiness, saying it had been the best Christmas surprise of our lives. I tried to smile too, but that tear wouldn't leave my mind. More than an hour went by. Lucas played with his gifts, and the house felt more alive than it had the entire month. But my dad still hadn't returned home. That began to feel wrong. Then the phone rang. My mom answered. At first, she looked confused. Then all the color drained from her face. She hung up slowly and whispered, "We need to go to the hospital. It's urgent." At the hospital, a doctor greeted us and led us to a quiet room. His voice was low, heavy, as if each word weighed something. My dad had been in a car accident earlier that afternoon. His car flipped over on a nearby road. He didn't survive. He had died hours before sunset. My mom collapsed to the floor. Lucas didn't understand. And I couldn't breathe. All I could think was, if my dad died in the afternoon, then who visited us on Christmas Eve? Who handed out the presents? Who cried while looking at us? As if it were the last time? We never got an answer. No sign of anyone entering our home that night? Nothing. But every year when Christmas comes around, that image returns to my mind. That single tear sliding slowly down his cheek. And I can't help but think that in some impossible way, my dad kept his promise.